Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Trade the Chain. It is January 20th, 2021. Ryan's already laughing, and I'm not even into this yet. Obviously, we have Ryan coming. He's laughing because, as you can see, that is not a green screen behind him. That is an actual, true tropical island paradise in his background. Then we have our crypto analyst, Monty. I just got out of bed, and CJ. I have nothing for CJ. But anyway, we got a good show for you today. We're going to go over Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been doing some weird price action throughout the day. Some people getting worried on some bearish looks of it. After that, we're going to hit HBAR, Hedera Hashgraph. There's a big price jump that just happened with them, up 40%. But also there's some news that is kind of positive coming out from them that Ryan's going to cover and CJ's going to cover, and we're all just going to cover it. And then we have our news bit, which is from Ryan, which is Janet Yellen, who went through her confirmation sessions yesterday, and we're going to see what not so good comments and news on Bitcoin she has for us. So Ryan, I give it over to you in paradise to take away.
Thank you, Alex. This is just a reminder that Trade the Chain, all information provided by Trade the Chain is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not investment advice and should not be construed as such. And also, Trade the Chain is brought to you by Trade the Chain, a 24/7 community of traders around the world in 20 time zones now, sharing ideas and using AI-driven sentiment indicators and actionable alerts to help them make more informed trades. We also have proprietary research and a whole host of other leading indicators that our customers are able to use. TradeTheChain.com for a 14-day trial.
Yeah, and one of those that we will be touching on later, like Alex mentioned, is HBAR, one that was at the top of Trade the Chain sentiment analysis before the 50% pop yesterday. Weston was checking that one out in chat, so very interesting, and excited to talk about HBAR later on as we move down into the show. But then in our sister communities here, Trade the Chain, as well as Market Rebellion Crypto, each day there's becoming more overlap within our two communities. But if you'd like to get trade ideas directly from Monty and myself, as well as a live chat and a macro portfolio with various crypto allocations, you can go to marketrebellion.com/crypto, and you can sign up today for just $1. But this is not just trade insights and an allocation. This is also a charting platform that you can use. We have live weekly webinars, and I'm also working on another TA course that should be done by the end of the month for our education curriculum. So marketrebellion.com/crypto, and you can try it for the first month for just $1. So please check that out. We really, really appreciate you. And
what's $1? Give $1 to CJ. Come on. You get some great features. Also, if you didn't notice, the other day I mistakenly put up the wrong video for the live premiere. I believe that was on Monday. And the video that we were anticipating, which was our normal Trade the Chain video, turned out to be an educational session I did with CJ on how to use the charting functionality at Market Rebellion. So if you're the least bit interested, there's a free video posted on Monday, which will give you some behind the curtain scene on how the charting works. From there, we're going to go to the big boards. Thanks, CJ.
Yeah, and thanks everyone. If you were watching that, all good sports. Everybody was really cool about it. So thanks for that.
It was a helpful video. I mean, to be fair.
Yeah. So looking at Bitcoin here, I did remove the symmetrical triangle just an hour ago when we did our live webinar, but it would have been right around here is where the ultimate point where we broke below that symmetrical triangle and started the bearish breakout. Now, since I've removed that bottom upward sloping trend line, if we zoom out here, we can see that the more broader formation is that of a descending triangle. And descending triangles have been very fatal for Bitcoin from a bullish perspective throughout history. So we're still on a red 7. We're finding a little interim support here at about, what is this, 33K? Yep, 33.7. We're finding a bit of interim support, but I still expect price to go down to 30K and test the bottom channel of that descending triangle. And ultimately, we still have our sights set here on the golden honey accumulation target. So we'll have to see if we hit those levels. You know, judging by the weekly chart, if we go to Bitcoin, we can still see we are tremendously just in a very high risk situation here from a long perspective, because we are starting to create that top, right? We got the first weekly candle below the top Bollinger Band. Every time we get that, we typically go back down to the second band, or the middle band rather. So that's pretty big warning shots from the bulls here.
Yeah.
Steep decline.
Yeah, that's a steep potential decline. And one thing that, if you've been trading crypto for a while, like we have, one thing that is particularly important that we look for is kind of the momentum of the market, and kind of how to tell when that momentum is starting to kind of die down or even reverse. And I think it's really kind of obvious if we take a look at the 4-hour chart that you were just showing, CJ, kind of how price was. It had such strong momentum, and then when we failed to break the previous swing high, all that momentum was kind of negated. And if you look at this 4-hour chart, it's a pretty nice descending triangle with these 2 green 9s kind of setting up as swing highs that failed to break the previous high, kind of confirming that we were out of that bullish momentum that carried us up to 42K in the first place. So when you're looking for kind of an indication of where the momentum is heading, when you get these 2 green 9s that fail to swing higher than the previous green 9, that's kind of a big red flag that the momentum is starting to die down. But taking a step back, this is kind of a perfectly healthy thing. And that's what CJ and I were talking about earlier, because looking at the weekly chart, we're largely overbought. Many sentiment indicators were telling us, like the RSI, that we were just way too overbought and we're due for somewhat of a correction. And it's looking like that's starting to happen. So although we may be in for 1 to 3 weeks of somewhat bearish neutral price action, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing for Bitcoin at all.
So we have the case for the markets going down, and we'll get into part of why that may be happening later in the show. But some of the more bullish indicators, Glassnode data, there's now 2,438 Bitcoin whales, the highest number that there ever have been. So we have evidence that people and institutions are accumulating Bitcoin at a rapid rate, or at least a mass rate. Grayscale and GBTC just bought $607 million worth of Bitcoin on Monday, their first purchase of the year. And now BlackRock, they have 2 funds, the world's largest asset manager. 2 funds are now going to be investing in Bitcoin futures. And you have outsized options positioning at the 52K level for the end of this month. So there are significant indicators to say that even if Bitcoin does go down, and that descending triangle looks awfully similar to 2017, there's significant evidence that perhaps that dip would only be temporary, because there's so much support to keep it, to return it to at least these levels, if not more, if not higher.
Yeah, we are macro bullish. And in order to get prices to 60 to possibly 100K, we're going to need participation from those institutions you mentioned, Ryan. And it's very promising. We know that they're getting in and buy that Glassnode data of wallets that have over 1,000 BTC, or more wallets that are more identifiable as being like corporate or institutional whales. We are seeing that number grow. However, judging by the RSI, judging by how derivatives traders move the price around in the short term, every time we get to this level on the RSI and the weekly, we come down a lot. And it's just, the technical signals are telling a very clear picture in my perspective. And those 2 narratives can coexist, right? We can still be macro bullish and think that we're going to 60 to 100 or 150K with this institutional participation. But in the short term, we must test lower levels and form some meaningful support.
We must visit the honey hole before we go higher.
And I thought we were going to get through an episode without the honey hole. I want to see right now how many people hashtag honey hole in the chat. That's it. I just figured it out. Folks, we're onto another chart right now. It's Hedera Hashgraph. It's Hedera Hashgraph. And its ticker is HBAR. And so HBAR did something interesting yesterday. It shot up, a dramatic mooning effect. And curious why? Well, because a certain piece of news came out on CNBC yesterday. Ryan, tell us a little bit about this.
Sure. Two hospitals in England are using the Hedera Hashgraph blockchain to track the temperature record of COVID vaccines. So they're using this kind of like a supply chain management system to ensure that vaccines stay at temperature. And the record itself is tamper-proof, so it can't be manipulated. And we know that the vaccines themselves stay at the current temperature and it's able to be tracked. This is a really cool project and a really cool idea, and it has a real-world use case. I just don't understand how it impacts the value of the token.
Yeah, I totally agree. So to Ryan's point, I mean, this is something that back in the olden days was thought of for supply chain. And by old days, I mean 2 years ago when people would blockchain and they were talking about trucking companies with freezer trucks going from coast to coast. And we can monitor the hamburger in the back and make sure it doesn't go below an unacceptable temperature. Because as we all know, the vaccine has to stay very frigidly cold in order to work, and doesn't work if it loses that temperature. So Monty brought something up as we were discussing this before we went on the air. Why couldn't any blockchain solve this, right? Is it just because somebody called up the UK NHS first, Monty, or is it particular specialty of HBAR to solve the world's problems with this virus?
Well, based on the information from the article, it seems like essentially there were a few options that these UK hospitals had, and it was essentially kind of a bidding war through these various blockchains. And HBAR was just the one that fit the bill the best, apparently. So I kind of like that almost capitalistic nature of like this use case for blockchain, and how like the hospital went with the one that was best suited for this purpose. And it kind of does like take us back to that 2017 when there was all the hype around like just the applications of blockchain beyond finance. And it seems like that has really died down today, like the article says. But I mean, with COVID being as prominent as it is, and there's so many barriers to overcome, I mean, blockchain seems like it could be a very valid use case in this scenario. So HBAR was in the right place at the right time and had the right utility for this purpose.
And they got the right price pump for it. CJ, show us how this thing went up almost 40%, up to 11.5%. I mean, it really paid out big time for some HBAR holders that weren't really going anywhere.
Yeah, right. Like looking back at the history of this asset, there really hasn't been much price action. But news is one hell of a catalyst in certain instances. And Weston from Trade the Chain, your guy's proprietary trader, he was talking about this when this news piece first broke. And it was kind of interesting. I was watching this last night, but we had this news piece out and price didn't immediately jump. It was kind of building up to this 4, 5, and 6 candle. And then within just an hour or two, we went up another, I can't measure it exactly, but at least another 20 or 30% in only a couple hours. And then we hit the 9 on the 1 hour, which is always a warning to take some off the table. And as you can see, we went down and have yet to go back above. I think with the collective market being as bearish as it is, I think it's going to be hard for HBAR to continue this uptrend after topping on this green 9. We'll see, but I think this is more, I think this has more to do with marketing. And maybe Ryan would
like let's go to Ryan.
Elaborate on that.
I mean, sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time. You make the right phone call and catch the right person. Better lucky than good. I mean, Alex knows all too well that I've just been in the right place at the right time at times with clients and gotten some really good opportunities. But I think, yeah, ultimately it was just a really smart marketing guy. who saw an opportunity, or a girl, a marketing person who saw an opportunity, made a phone call, sent an email, and right place, right time. But hey, listen, if it's helping people and it's helping us get rid of this plague, then I'm all for it. I don't care who does it. But I just don't understand how it corresponds to the value of the token. What time did it shoot up yesterday? Like, was that like at 7 o'clock or so?
Yes, it was during prime Asia trading hours, which was about probably 8 p.m. Eastern, your guys' time, and around 7 for us in Chicago here.
And just to give you an idea, CNBC unleashed this at 7 a.m. in the morning. So this, I mean, it looks, listen, it looks clearly like a PR pump, and that's okay. Congrats to all the HBAR bag holders. And listen, yeah, somebody does have to participate in saving the world from this pandemic, so that's cool. But I mean, CJ Monty, are we correct? Is this a PR price pump or?
Yeah, to me, it seems like it. I mean, unless we hear more news of other hospitals kind of adopting HBAR as well for the same purpose, I kind of anticipate this to just correct back to kind of the range it was trading in before this news.
All right. Now we're going to go to Ryan because, and I call this the ridiculous news segment. And the reason I do that is because Jenny Yellen sat in Washington yesterday going through a confirmation. I struggled to sit through a little bit of it. Nothing personally against her at all. But the, you know, here it comes out, this Bitcoin, money laundering, terrorist financing, and all this stuff. It's a regurgitation of crappy news as far as I'm concerned. Ryan, walk us through this this nonsense.
Sure. So Janet Yellen, the former SEC chair, she's been nominated by new president. We can't even say incoming president anymore. He's been sworn in. So new president Joe Biden to head the Treasury. And as part of her confirmation process yesterday on Capitol Hill, in front of the Senate Finance Committee, she was talking about a number of different topics related to the Treasury. And when cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular came up, she her exact quote is, "I think many cryptocurrencies are used, at least in transaction sense, mainly for illicit financing, and we need to examine ways in which we can curtail their use and make sure that anti-money laundering doesn't occur through those channels." That's just ridiculous. If you look at forensic data, I mean, Chainalysis was able to track down the guy in France who sent the money to the extremists who stormed Capitol Hill. I mean, you can't do that with cash. You can't. It's in briefcases. It's laundered through multiple different banks and all these different like islands like this. And it's just, it disappears. It doesn't exist anymore. It gets washed and laundered. And Alex, I know you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And by the way, Ryan's just boots on the ground in the islands building a laundromat down there. No, people don't understand. This is not anonymous. There is CJ pointed out before the show when we were discussing this, there is US dollar fiat currency is used so much more, even from a percentage point to market cap or circulation, than Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is or can be in a long time. But people don't understand that this is trackable. This is trackable. If Ryan is part of an extremist group and I send him 100 BTC to go buy some army jeeps, the government's going to know this real quickly. There's enough surveillance tools in the system right now that you would actually be better off just FedExing them the dollars.
Yeah, well, think about like the irony of like the two news pieces we just shared. One is talking about the utility of blockchain as a way to like indisputably track the temperature of vaccines and create an immutable record that cannot be changed for medicinal purposes that have lives in the balance. And now we're talking about Bitcoin not being able to be traced. So like, which is it? Is the blockchain great for recording transactions and doing logistical things, or is it untraceable like Janet Yellen says? I think we know that the ledger is immutable and all transactions that happen on the Bitcoin network are put on that ledger forever.
Yeah. I think it's one major thing. The industry isn't working hard enough to dispel these misconceptions. There needs to be more transparency. Well, sure, us, yes, the collective us, but I mean, projects, exchanges, when you have other exchanges daring regulators to go after them, you have other companies relocating to avoid US regulations. I mean, fine. Money will always find, like water always finds its level. Money will always find its way to flow wherever it's going to flow, whether it's digital or fiat. But the industry needs to make more of an effort. They need to work together. They need to be collaborative with regulators. And that's ultimately the problem here.
If you're a company in crypto, you know, there's an exodus and a black mark on the US because of the hurdles of regulation, because companies are scared to operate in this country, and all that stuff. That does have to change. It has to be more collaborative between regulators and crypto companies, I think, for this to happen. I mean, listen, it's bad if everybody keeps playing regulatory arbitrage with various islands behind Ryan. We should have a good discussion about this and get the regulators and the crypto companies on board. It's not all the regulators' fault either. Crypto companies have to,
No, of course not.
yeah, walk it forward. CJ, thoughts?
I'm looking for the statistics on money laundering in traditional banks versus in crypto.
He's looking for a chart.
It's quite staggering when it comes to the amount laundered by banks and relative to crypto. I mean, like Ryan said, you know, with the majority of, you know, exchanges and brokerages having KYC and AML now connected to a wallet, it becomes very difficult to, you know, have that crypto be anonymous. It's going to be linked to some various identity. And so, like, it's going to be traceable. There are only going to be very few instances where, let's say, if an individual wants to use Bitcoin or cryptocurrency for illegal transactions, you know, maybe they'll use something like a coin join or a coin filter. Here we go. But like Ryan said, the best option for illicit spending will always be cash or just USD. So here we have a nice graphic that I like to allude to, comparing the money laundering by banks relative to cryptocurrencies. So as you can see, we have some small numbers. Well, I mean, 25 million is a decent amount laundered by crypto. But, you know, you can see that the largest amount laundered is, you know, only in the hundreds of millions. Whereas if we compare it with actual banks, it is in the billions of trillions. As we can say here,
Wow.
HSBC between the United States and the UK has laundered roughly $9.4 trillion, the majority of which are going for drug cartels in Latin America and Mexico, and various other illicit purposes. But when you compare that to the overall, you know, case in Bitcoin, it's just not even comparable. So we need more education. We need people to be aware of these things. I think a lot of people become interested in Bitcoin or introduced with Bitcoin because of what happened with the Silk Road and its history of being used on illicit marketplaces. But now we're transitioning to something different. We're transitioning to a public store of value that, you know, the average person has the ability to acquire nowadays.
Thanks, Ross.
Yeah. Completely agree. Well, listen, I want to bring up, we're going to announce our Bitcoin, $50 Bitcoin giveaway winner tomorrow. So you still have time to post into the comments from yesterday's video to enter. Don't forget, that's $50 of Ryan Gorman's hairdo money that is going directly into your pocket. Also, don't forget to head on over to marketrebellion.com. Good folks over there and great community. Let's see, what else do I want to bring up? I always close the show too early. Nah, I think that's pretty much it. Well, guys, happy honey hole hunting, and hang on to your handlebars, and we'll see you tomorrow to announce the winner of the Bitcoin giveaway for Ryan's hairdo money. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.